Hey everyone, it's OJ here. Thanks for tuning in. This is my New Year's report. This is my full 2017 report on the complete crypto market, all of the key events that shaped up the price of Bitcoin and the rest of the altcoins and affected the market growth of the whole crypto world. So stay tuned, don't go anywhere. I'm gonna try and be brief. Okay, so let's get started. First, I'm going to start with the total market cap of the whole crypto space, currently sitting at 607 billion. This is by far exceeding anyone's expectations. Somewhere towards February, March, we were talking about the market cap, reaching 100 billion, and that was a big deal at the time. Well, we are now 6 times over that. In total, the whole crypto market has grown at about 4,000%, roughly 4,000% growth. If we have a look at the beginning of the year, let me just go on year to date. We're going to see that we started the year at about $17.5 billion worth of the whole crypto market. At the time Bitcoin was dominating heavily, it was pretty much 90% of that. If we look at the Bitcoin chart, exactly a year to date, the whole market cap of Bitcoin was sitting at 15.5 billion out of 17.5. That is pretty much 90%. In fact, I can be more precise if I go down here, and we can see that it was exactly 87% at the beginning of the year. That didn't last very long, and towards March we saw the first signs of a lot of altcoins becoming popular and a lot of money kind of coming out of Bitcoin, diversifying into other cryptos. Like Ripple did very well, Ethereum did very well, Litecoin did very well, Dash as well. So the Bitcoin domination was challenged, and it was definitely weakened in 2017. That is good news, in fact, because of course the crypto market is much bigger than just Bitcoin. And even though for many people 2017 is the year when they actually found out about Bitcoin and they jumped into Bitcoin, Forbes actually called it the year of Bitcoin. To me, it's actually the year of crypto, because Bitcoin was already really strong and already becoming popular towards the end of 2016. So I think that this is really the year when many people became more aware about the rest of the crypto coins, the alternative coins, and more people became involved with them, investors, traders, and just opportunists. So it was overall a fantastic year, a really big growth for the whole crypto market. We can see that in the last half of the year, in the last 3 months, ever since Bitcoin became really big on the mainstream media, the whole crypto market also grew with it, and it's almost a parabolic growth here, which of course was calling for a correction. This is why we saw that at its peak the market reached 623 billion, and then there was a correction on the market. It went down to 556. Currently it's at 604, 607. Of course that will be changing according to every hour when this gets updated. This is the website where I'm getting all of the statistics from. It's coinmarketcap.com. As always, you can pick up all of the links from below the video. In the description of my video you will find the links to all of these charts and websites that I'm using here for my reference. Now let's have a look at the Bitcoin chart for a moment, and then I'm going to go into month by month different events that actually shaped this chart. So what we can see is that we started the year at just under $1,000, pretty much on the 2nd or 3rd of January. We already surpassed the $1,000, and this was quite an important moment at the time. It was the first time that Bitcoin touched the 1,000 mark since 2013, which was the previous all-time high, and and many people woke up to Bitcoin, and this was the first surge of a lot of money and early investors going into that currency and using it as a store of value, as a store of wealth. Later on, that price didn't stay on over 1000 for too long. Pretty much throughout January it was around 900. It couldn't really keep up with the 1000. The market needed a bit of correction until the whole market adjusts to Bitcoin costing over 1000. It actually took Bitcoin about a whole year to reach that mark. It was at 400 before that, at the beginning of 2016. It took quite a bit of time for Bitcoin to actually reach 1000. It was trading around 400 and 500 for the majority of 2016, and it only started approaching 800 and 1000 towards the end of the year. However, it was much quicker now in 2017, these kind of jumps, and as soon as February was gone, we saw Bitcoin started climbing towards the 2000 mark, and towards the end of May, 21st in fact, is when it actually touched 2000. Now 2000 is a whole 100% growth from January. So now it took about 5 months for Bitcoin to reach 1000%, to reach 100% growth, which is something that took previously 8 or 9 months or something like that. So that was quite an important step. It kind of set up, it gave us a bit of a taste of what is to come with Bitcoin, because now that it's trading in the 2000s, things start to get faster and move a little bit faster. Now there was a bit of correction on Bitcoin. This happened here in June and July. This was at the time when there was a lot of talk about the forking, a lot of uncertainty, and of course with uncertainty there were many people who were exiting positions and switching to alternative coins. Again, Ethereum was one of the favorites at the time. We were hearing a lot of news about Ethereum possibly becoming the next Bitcoin, becoming, the next dominant cryptocurrency. It also reached, at the time Ethereum was reaching all-time highs as well. I'm gonna go into that in a little bit. Then we had another spike of Bitcoin, and this is when a lot of the other cryptocurrencies, all the altcoins in fact, lost a lot of their value. At this spike here, which was in a matter of 1 month, Bitcoin went from 2000 all the way to 4000, which is another 100% this time in the space of just over 30 days. That was a very speedy, very rapid growth, which actually caused a lot of the rest of the crypto market to suffer. And we saw that a lot of the altcoins were really bleeding for a long time. That some of them are still bleeding. And here is an example. These are just a few different coins. This is Steam, Game Credits, Zcash, Stellar, Clamps, all of these coins. We can see that in May, all of them had the all-time highs of their values, and from that point they're on the slide down. This is when Bitcoin was starting to grow really fast, and a lot of the money that was previously being diversified into altcoins, a lot of these traders realized, I need to go back into Bitcoin, because this is what they experienced. If you kept your money in Bitcoin, you had jumped 100% in the matter of a month, and at that time all of the other coins, they couldn't keep up, so they lost, some of them lost about 80% of their value. They went all the way back to previous prices, and then later on we can see with Steam, in fact, it's gone below its previous prices, the prices that were back in March and April, when many people got involved with the crypto market and started trading. These are the prices that a lot of the times the coins went down to those prices. In the case of Steam, it went even below that. The same happened to Zcash, the same happened to Game Credits. In terms of Bitcoin value, now in terms of dollar value, a lot of them are still performing quite okay. But this is when the crypto winter began, and that's in June, just after at the end of May, early June, and that coincided with a lot of talks about Bitcoin forking. And with the Bitcoin forking, when people realized that a hard fork means that you will be getting the same amount of coins from the new fork of the forked coin as you had with Bitcoin, many people decided to get back their capital into Bitcoin so that they can profit from the forks. And we started waiting and just building up, accumulating Bitcoin for the fork, which happened on the 1st of August. So let's go now month by month into the events that shaped up exactly how Bitcoin developed and the prices and the market and everything, so that we have a little bit more understanding of how things happened and why. So in January we had the price going for 1,000 for the first time since 2013. The market cap of Bitcoin is currently standing at 15 billion, and 100 billion is far away, let alone 200, which is currently what we're having, 232 billion. We also had news about the Lightning Network started being tested. The first time we heard news about the Lightning Network, and that was to do with the fact that Bitcoin transactions were already starting to get quite expensive. Around Christmas, of course, there was a big rally. Around Christmas, there was a lot of hype about Bitcoin. This is when the first big influx of money came into Bitcoin. This is why Bitcoin managed to reach $1,000 in the space of literally a month. And before that, it took about 4 or 5 months for the price to move by $100. It was 700, then 800, then 700 again. So for quite a while, it was like that. Christmas, of course, made things much faster, and with that, with the more transactions and more interest in Bitcoin, came the big queues of transactions and the higher fees. Also, we saw the first talk about Bitcoin being in a bubble. Not the first, but the first in a while, in a long time. With the price surging to 1,000, articles about Bitcoin being a bubble started appearing. And we saw many of these throughout the year. Throughout 2017, the mainstream media was constantly warning everyone that Bitcoin is in a bubble, and they were comparing it to the tulip mania. This is something that we saw a lot of the times, and now we know that there are many other factors that kind of prevent Bitcoin from being a bubble. I'm going to include a short interview with the Winklevoss twins at the end of my report today, so stay tuned for that. In February, we saw that the Bitcoin transactions went to a record high, some of them reaching $60 and even $90 transactions were reported in February. This is when the talk about the scaling problems of Bitcoin really started. There were already proposals and talks about that in the previous couple of years, but this is when we saw a lot of interviews with Roger Ver, who was really a supporter of bigger block sizes, and the Bitcoin core team, the developers who had the SegWit solution, and this is when we didn't really, the first FUD about the Bitcoin scaling solution and the Bitcoin possible forking started circulating in the media. We also saw some of the Chinese exchanges starting to suspend withdrawals in the first of a wave of different regulations and attempts of the Chinese government to clamp down on Bitcoin trading and Bitcoin mining in their country. Also, we saw analysts talking about 100 billion market cap for Bitcoin. At the time, Bitcoin was sitting, this is in February, Bitcoin was sitting at a market cap of around 17 billion. So 100 billion was seeming like a distant future, seeming like something that might take another year or more. Now we know that we are twice bigger, we are ending the year with twice bigger figure than that, which is remarkable indeed. Also, we saw another all-time high that was reached in February, and that was slightly higher than the 2013 all-time high, but really that was short-lived, because very soon after that we had more news about the Chinese government forcing exchanges to stop withdrawals, which of course caused a panic and a price dip of Bitcoin. Also in March, at the same time, we saw that the first ETF, regulated ETF of Bitcoin that was proposed by the Winklevoss twins was rejected by the US Securities Commission. So that didn't really help the price of Bitcoin, and we saw a 30% price dip in Bitcoin. That 30%, we can see it here in March. Let me go into the chart again. This is that March price dip, which as soon as the news broke that the ETF is rejected, many people kind of lost faith in Bitcoin. They thought that this will cause a very bearish market for a long time, which was not really the case, but there was a lot of shortening happening, a lot of selling, and we saw that it happened in 2 waves, almost 3, and this is now typical for Bitcoin. We know that when the price dips, a lot of the times it actually happens in 2 waves, and the second wave is usually the deeper, the more worse impact we're getting from the second wave. So this is when a lot of people are ready to buy, and all the big traders are actually buying at these bigger dips. Also, with that price, we saw that a lot of the money went into alternative coins. This is the first time when the Bitcoin dominance starts getting weakened, and it's because people were worried that Bitcoin might actually be replaced by another currency because of that big rejection of the ETF, which kind of signaled that maybe Bitcoin is not as strong as we think it is. And a lot of the money at the time went into Ethereum because there was a lot of promotion on Ethereum. There was a lot of hope that Ethereum, being a very different type of ecosystem than Bitcoin, and not really created as a currency, but as, you know, as a whole infrastructure for building applications, it's just a very different project to Bitcoin, and many people kind of expected that Ethereum might in fact become the next Bitcoin. This is when we started seeing articles about Ethereum possibly replacing Bitcoin, and we saw that it's here in March when the first price surge of Ethereum happened, and it went from 15 to 36 and then 40, 50 even dollars. So that was over 100% growth of Ethereum in March. And if we go and have a look at this chart here, we're going to see that in fact in March we saw the first weakening of the Bitcoin dominance, for the first time leaving the 80% and going down all the way to 70. So that's a 10% loss in the space of just a couple of weeks. Later on it went down to 66%, and it stayed around 60-70% all the way until May. In May, Bitcoin dominance became declining much more rapidly. It went all the way down to 36, and then due to the forks and a few other events, it had a bit more dominance. It went all the way back to 60%, which is something that I reported on earlier in November. And this was, all of that time was at the time when Bitcoin price was going over 100% and over 100% again. Here we had a few months when the price went 100% more than once. So this is why the market went back to Bitcoin, and now we're seeing again a healthy weakening of the dominance of Bitcoin. A lot of money going again into alternative coins. We're seeing that Litecoin is doing particularly well. Recently it had an all-time high. If we have a look at the chart of Litecoin, here we can see that in November, in fact, and in December, in fact, it reached its all-time high of $366, a price that is no longer holding, but definitely Litecoin had a very successful year. But back to the news, and in April we had the first talks in end of March, in fact. For the first time we heard that Japan is preparing to legalize Bitcoin and start accepting it as a legal tender. That happened in April, and with that the price of Bitcoin started jumping quite rapidly. This is the first time that we saw a big jump of the Bitcoin price since the beginning of the year, because it was around $1,000 for the first trimester, for the first quarter. And from April we saw that the Bitcoin price started going more rapidly towards the 2000 mark. In the middle of May it actually reached 2000, and this was 100% growth since the beginning of the year. So we can see now that one of the main reasons for that was the fact that Japan started legalizing it and started trading it more. Japan very soon took over the biggest volume from China, so no longer China was the dominant trading market, it was Japan now. Later on the volume moved to South Korea, which also surpassed China and Japan in trading volume, but only recently. And then in May we had even more news about Japan accepting Bitcoin in many stores, and people started really using Bitcoin in Japan as a legal tender, as a quick currency to pay for goods rather than just a store of value. Also in May we saw that Coinbase added Litecoin to their wallet, and that also spiked the price of Litecoin. This is the first time when we saw a big jump in Litecoin here in May. It went to an all-time high at the time of almost $30. It was $29.90 in fact, and later on it managed to keep that price for quite some time, and only recently it surpassed it, and it had quite a major year, Litecoin. And talks about Australia possibly becoming the next country to legalize and start using Bitcoin started circulating. We still haven't seen that, but we know that it's possibly happening very soon, so watch out for that. Also, we saw that the Chinese exchanges resumed withdrawals. They finally opened after a couple of months of freezer, and that also became a catalyst to the price of Bitcoin. So that's why we saw the Bitcoin price starting to climb up even higher. This is now in June. Another all-time high here we saw in June, 2,860, and we also saw the rise of the ICOs. The summer months were really the months when a lot of money was going into ICOs. Many people were waking up to the fact that ICOs are having a really low threshold price on their pre-sales, when they're open just to members of the public who are willing to invest in a project that is in complete people who are willing to invest in a project without really having enough facts to be able to judge that project. This is why ICOs became very easy for many scammers. And throughout the summer there were many successful but also many scams in the ICO market, and it called for a lot of regulation. As soon as the autumn came, as soon as fall started, in September we saw the first articles about many different regulatory bodies in different governments starting to clamp down on the ICOs, either banning them or just regulating them, and starting to basically monitor the activity of any project, any company that tries to do an ICO, because unlike IPOs, which is initial public offerings for a company that wants to go public and wants to have their shares being offered to the public, with the ICOs you didn't have all of the bureaucracy that goes into these public offerings, and you don't really have the regulations and that they have to be subjected to. Therefore, it left a room for many different projects that were not so legitimate to thrive and pick up a massive investment from the public without necessarily being able to provide all of the necessary infrastructure and development team to justify the price that they pocketed. And in a lot of these cases we saw a lot of project developers who started and launched successful ICOs, later on abandoning those projects and people actually losing money. So the ICO craze was really in the summer of 2017. Then it went a little bit quiet, but I'm still seeing, judging from what I'm seeing on social media, I must say that the ICO is still a really popular asset and many people are going for ICOs, but do be careful with these. You need to do a lot of research and don't just listen to people who promote them, because a lot of the times there is vested interest in those, and you need to be able to make your own judgment based on some sort of information that you have about the project rather than just word of mouth, right? So that was throughout the summer. The main events that happened was the talk about the possible forking. There was a talk about a user-activated soft fork called ep1, which was very unfriendly fork of Bitcoin, and many people were really scared about it. This was causing the price to kind of stale throughout June and July, and it didn't really reach any new all-time highs throughout June and July. The fork was scheduled for the 1st of August, and many of the people accumulated Bitcoin because of that fork, but there was also lots of selling happening because of the fear and uncertainty. That's why we didn't really see a massive jump of the price of Bitcoin prior to the fork as it was expected. Now that fork luckily was avoided, but it was avoided at a price, at a high price, I would say. We still saw that the fork was only being avoided because miners were forced to signal for SegWit, and those miners who weren't agreeing with SegWit, which was the scaling solution of the Bitcoin core team, there was a group of miners that were not agreeing to that scaling solution, and they actually did their own fork, now popular as Bitcoin Cash. Bcash was the fork that was born out of that disagreement between miners mainly from the east and developers mainly from the west, Bitcoin core developers, and the people who wanted the bigger block sizes, they just forked and they created Bitcoin Cash. There were a lot of articles that were pro Bitcoin Cash on bitcoin.com, and this is why they lost a lot of their legitimacy, in my opinion. I don't know if you agree with me, and if you do, just leave me a comment below the video. I want to see how many of you are actually reading bitcoin.com and how many of you are trusting bitcoin.com. What is actually scary is the fact that they claim to be adding 1 million unique viewers per month, and this is why, you know, manipulating public opinion could be quite a big deal for all of those new people coming into Bitcoin, coming into the crypto world, who are not really familiar with how things are really going on, with how things really are. Also, we saw that blockchain.info, the famous open source Bitcoin wallet, cloud storage wallet, added Ether, which was the first altcoin that they added in, ever. And that happened in August. So now you can get Ethereum on the blockchain.info, and I think Bitcoin Cash later on they added as well. Also, we saw that Lightning Network started getting tested and prepared, because there were still talks that SegWit, it wasn't quite agreed upon, and not everyone was signaling for SegWit, so people started preparing for the next scaling solution, and that is the Lightning Network. I spoke briefly about it in one of my previous videos of one of my webisodes of Bitcoin Simplified, so make sure that you check these out. Also, we saw that in August we had another all-time high. The price reached 4,650, and that was an all-time high of 100% higher than a month prior to that. But if you look at Bitcoin, what happens prior to these price jumps, what we are seeing here is that there was another correction, and that happened here in August. In August, we saw another correction of Bitcoin, and it went from 4,400 down to 3,900. Now this was a 10% correction, and even though on the chart it looks like something small, it was actually a big deal for many people at the time. So what happened after that was another growth to another all-time high of touching 5,000, and then quick correction all the way below 3,300, which was here, it was really a more than 30% dip. That, for many people, was yet another reason to start the talk about Bitcoin bubble and possible bursting of the bubble, and all of that mainstream media talk that is mainly attempting to scare people away from Bitcoin, because we know that the mainstream media is still controlled by governments. Now, what we are seeing here as a pattern is that every time there is a price dip, we are seeing that after that, Bitcoin is adding nearly 100% to its value. This is very important, because if we look at what's happening currently with Bitcoin, many people are worried right now. And again, mainstream media is trying to make you believe that Bitcoin is not performing very well. Bitcoin is losing about 10% of its value in the last few days. It went all the way to almost 20. We see here 19,000. Actually, in fact, it did touch the 20,000. Not on Coinbase, but it touched 20,000 on Kraken, I think. and now it's down to 13,000. In fact, currently it's at 13,386 as I'm speaking to you. Now this is about $4,000 price dip, which is something like 20. And 20% is a significant price dip. But what we're seeing is that we had 30% price dip back in September. Before that we had a 30% price dip in May. And after that we had a 100% price spike. Then we had another 30% price dip, or 20, and we had another 100% price spike when we went from 3,000 all the way to 7,000. That was actually more than 100% of a price spike. And then we had another 30% price dip. We went from 7,500 all the way down to 5,600. And straight after that, we went all the way to 15,000. So that was now 150% added in the matter of a month. That happened from November until December. So right now, of course, there should be a correction. Of course, the price went up quite substantially and way too soon. So the market needs that healthy correction, which I'm not really worried about. I reported in my previous update that I'm expecting the price to be consolidating between 12 to 14,000 for a good month. And it's not yet happened. It's only been a week, a couple of weeks. So we are still having some time for that price consolidation to happen, for the market to adjust to that price and prepare for the next price spike. Could really be another 100%, and if that happens, then we are talking about somewhere around 25,000, 26 perhaps even, because we're currently sitting at 13. So if that were to happen, we would really need to be prepared, because of course the market is also a reflection of people's emotion, and you know, you have to be prepared mentally in order to be trading it at these levels and to be buying it at these levels, because for many people that price is already too high. 17,000 was already too high. I'm pretty sure that going down to 13 made a lot of people you know, much easier for them to purchase it, to get involved with Bitcoin. And that is important. That happens every time when there is a very fast spike in the price. So back to the news. Let's see what was happening in September. Oh yes, in September we had that price dip of 30%, and that coincided with two events. First, there was a big statement made by Jamie Dimon, who is the head of JP Morgan, one of the major corporate banks. He went on the record to claim that Bitcoin was worth nothing, and that was in fact a fraud. And literally days after that claim, on the same day, Bitcoin price started plummeting down, and within a couple of days Bitcoin lost 20% or something of its value. On top of that, at the same time, Chinese and South Korean governments hit heavily on exchanges and on the ICOs. In particular, China banned ICOs, and within a week South Korea also announced a ban on initial coin offerings, because there were way too many scams happening in these countries, and way too many people were losing money and were being victims of online fraud. With all of these events, the price went down by 30%, and it actually reached the lowest point. It went to 10,600. That was just for a brief moment. It was traded there for just less than an hour, but it in fact reached that lower level. So there was a lot of accumulation happening at this level. It didn't really stay there, and the price went down from 5,000 all the way to 3,266. Now on this chart it might look like something really tiny, but that is a 20%, more than 20% dip in Bitcoin, almost 30% dip again. So these two events were really the catalyst for that price dip, and this is why we were seeing a lot of fear, uncertainty and doubt yet again in Bitcoin, a lot of selling. And I was doing videos there to warn people that this is just the way that people are manipulating public opinion, because they can, because they have a very loud public voice, like the head of a major corporate bank. Later on, Jamie Dimon was proved to be a fraud, with many people showing records actually and showing proof how his bank was not only trading Bitcoin at the time of this volatility of the market, but also bought a big chunk of Bitcoin, something like to the amount of $70 million worth of Bitcoin at that price dip. And this is how big money manipulates the markets. So this is why you shouldn't really be listening to these kind of marketing tricks that the media is throwing at you. And also we saw another price all-time high of Bitcoin straight after that. Pretty much at the end of October, we saw that the price went up all the way to 6,400, which at the time was another all-time high. Also at that time, we saw a lot of forks started appearing. We first had the Bitcoin Gold fork, and later on we saw a number of other forks. Pretty much every precious metal name you can imagine of was being attached to Bitcoin in an attempt to create some free money out of thin air, just based on the popularity of the branding of Bitcoin. We saw Bitcoin Platinum, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin Silver, and whatever else you can think of we saw in Bitcoin. There were too many folks, and a lot of them were just pointless airdrops, mainly Chinese and South Korean. And I haven't really reported on these folks, guys, because you know that I'm only reporting on the ones that are more substantial, the ones that actually matter and that can actually bring you some sort of a growth of your portfolio. The ones that I haven't reported about are the ones that don't really matter. Also, there was a fork just a couple of days ago, and it was claiming to be the Segwit 2x fork. That didn't occur. That was built for November, but in November it didn't get enough support, so it was called off. And there were a few attempts to revive that fork just because of the popularity of it. The most recent one was just a couple of days ago, and it was again just a Chinese company trying to make something and create another fork of Bitcoin just to cash in on the popularity. In the media it was already reported that this is sort of a fake attempt, so I didn't even report about it because I don't really consider it important. Also in November, for the first time, we saw that Ethereum in fact has scalability issues. There was an app that managed to clog the network of Ethereum and slowed down transactions, causing a queue of transactions for Ethereum, a massive backlog for the first time. It's called Kittens, Crypto Kittens. This is the app here, and it's the first decentralized blockchain-based app that managed to cause a worldwide shock from Ethereum of all networks. We thought that Ethereum is the superior network, more modern and kind of more scalable than Bitcoin, and we realized that it's not really the case. We're yet to find out how Ethereum is going to sort out the scalability issue. This is something that is coming in 2018, and a lot of eyes, a lot of hopes are actually bet on Ethereum, because there's still the talk that 2018 could be the year of Ethereum. For a moment in the middle of 2017, we thought that Ethereum is gaining momentum. It was only for a brief moment. But funny enough, throughout 2017, Ethereum was the second cryptocurrency in market capitalization for the whole of 2017. And only now, in the last couple of days, Ripple, of all coins, managed to gain a massive momentum. It went all the way to $2.25, and that was from 20 cents. So we're talking about 10,000% growth in the matter of a couple of months. And Ripple managed to surpass Ethereum not only in trading volume but also in market capitalization. And this is major, because even though it's done it in the past a couple of times, it was always just for a brief moment at times of pumps when a lot of money was going into Ethereum. But Ethereum has a really big already circulating supply. It was pre-mined, and that is a major turnoff for many of the traders and investors in Ripple. This is why I'm surprised to see that Ripple managed to surpass Ethereum, and we'll see. I'm going to report, and we will see if that is going to hold on. If this will be the case in a week or 2 weeks from now on, I'm going to keep a close eye on this, but Ripple altogether had by far the best year, so far. Bitcoin probably had the best year in the terms of popularity and everything. Bitcoin gained 2000% to its value, which is remarkable. But if we look at Ripple started the year with costing 0.006 cents to the dollar, closing the year at 2.13. Let me just find the chart of Ripple. So we can see here 0.006523. This was the price of Ripple in USD. And if we go to today, and that's not even the peak of it, it's now valued at $2.18, and its peak, it was $2.74. Now that is a growth of over 40,000%. Nothing else managed to get that amount of growth in 1 year. This is the growth of Ripple, by far surpassing the growth of Dash and Ethereum and Stratis and Litecoin and Monero and all of them. In fact, even Bitcoin. So the total winner of all of the cryptos, despite all odds, appears to be Ripple. Dash did also very well. 1000% was the growth of Dash throughout the course of the year, and it in fact was a very steady growth, and it's keeping its price quite well against Bitcoin as well, which is one of the few currencies that managed to keep a steady price against Bitcoin. Pretty much all of the other currencies were hit in the middle of the year when Bitcoin started jumping, and they experienced a lot of drawbacks. Litecoin is another one that managed to hold its price, and recently it experienced all-time highs. Ethereum not so much. We see that throughout May and June it was at its peak, and since then it's actually gone down. And in terms of Bitcoin value, which is the orange curve here, in terms of Bitcoin value, it has lost a lot of its value. It's only managed to gain a lot of value in dollar, but that is also because of the difference between dollar and Bitcoin, how they grow. Bitcoin really grew against the dollar, and this is why Ethereum couldn't keep up with that growth. That's why we are seeing that the growth of Ethereum against Bitcoin is much less than what we are seeing against the dollar. It is at its peak, it was 1000% growth in dollar, but only 550% growth against Bitcoin from the same time around last year. The price of Monero also managed to go up by 2000% in dollar value. Not so much in Bitcoin value, but definitely a great and remarkable growth again for all of the people who were invested in Monero, especially at the beginning of the year. They have seen an increase of 2000% on their portfolio. Pretty much the same happened to Stratis. It opened the year at 7 cents to the dollar, and it closes the year at $13. So that is in fact a 22,000% growth for Stratis, but that is in dollars, in dollar value. Against Bitcoin, unfortunately, it has lost from its peak, when at its peak it was at 0.035, or perhaps slightly higher. 0.041 was at its peak, and right now is 0.010. So that's not as a good performance as we saw with Ripple or Litecoin or even Dash. So this is the overall market roundup that I wanted to do for you guys. I hope this is helping, and it's giving you a better perspective on how the crypto market developed over the course of the year. There were a lot of things happening in the crypto world, and there is a lot of media news and a lot of articles and things that you can follow, and I always point out the good ones in my updates. So stay tuned, make sure that you subscribe to this channel so that you can keep informed. And of course I'm doing my regular updates where I'm going through the main articles that I've selected from all the crypto media, because there's a lot online. Not everything is genuine. A lot of the articles could try and kind of manipulate public opinion. This is what Bitcoin.com is doing, and a few other blogs and websites. I always try to call them out on it so that you know when you're reading these articles not to necessarily trust them 100%. But overall, the year we are ending on a high note. We had a more than 4,000% growth of the whole crypto market, from 15 billion market cap to all the way to 600 billion market cap. It's definitely going for the 1 trillion very soon, and I'm pretty sure this will happen in 2018. But also with Bitcoin alone, we've had a massive growth. Now we've seen that Bitcoin has grown bigger than PayPal. It's gone bigger than McDonald's. I reported on it. I did a special video when Bitcoin surpassed the market cap of McDonald's. It's also bigger than IBM, the computer giant. And if we look at this graph here, we can see these are all of the top companies over $100 billion worth in market cap. And currently Bitcoin is sitting at 232 billion market cap. So if we look at the companies that have the market cap under that number, that means that we are bigger than Bank of America, Visa, AT&T, bigger than Coca-Cola, bigger than Pepsi, bigger than Disney, bigger than MasterCard. So these are all of the companies, and these are massive corporations that Bitcoin is already bigger in market cap. Okay, soon we are going for the Apple market cap. It is close to 1 trillion, and first it will have to be the whole crypto market reaching that market cap, reaching the Apple market cap. This will probably happen in the next 3 months or something like that, maybe even sooner than that. We've seen that the whole cryptocurrency market cap has grown exponentially in the last few months. It's gone from 168 in October all the way to 600 in December. Now this is a remarkable growth. That's more than 3 times 3,000% here just in the last couple of months. So probably there will be a slight decline now after Christmas, and then after that I'm pretty sure that more money will keep going into the crypto world. So we are in the right place at the right time. Everyone who's been following me since the beginning of the year until now, you guys rock, and you guys were in the right place early on. So I'm pretty sure that you're seeing some very good profits in your portfolio, in your crypto portfolio, if you're invested in cryptocurrencies and altcoins. I'm gonna try and do more videos about altcoins in the new year. I'm starting this new podcast which is called the Crypto Corner, and it's going to be, I'm gonna go into more in-depth view of different cryptocurrencies that I'm invested with or interested in, because I know that many people want to diversify from Bitcoin, and you don't really want to have all of your eggs in one basket. This is why I'm gonna try and do more videos and updates for you guys to help you and to guide you and to share my knowledge, what I'm finding out, and you know, what I'm seeing about the crypto market, where it's going, and you know, what can we expect. So thanks for watching, guys, until the end. Now I'm gonna go into a short interview with the Wilkenvoss twins, talking about, is Bitcoin in a bubble? We saw way too many articles about Bitcoin possibly getting into a bubble. We also saw a lot of articles about the biggest exchanges now in December. That's what I forgot to mention before I leave you. December was the month where Bitcoin added another 100% to its value, and that was mainly because of a lot of the big Wall Street exchanges, and also the Chicago Board Options Exchange, the world's largest options exchange, added Bitcoin futures. Finally, after quite a few rejections earlier on through the year, they finally added Bitcoin futures to their trading. So now we're seeing really big money coming into Bitcoin. This is why the price in December inflated parabolically, and this is why we are seeing that healthy correction right now that is happening to Bitcoin's price, and this is what happened all in December, in just the space of 1 month. So also South Korea clamped down again on traders and introduced heavier taxes and everything. That's another reason why the price right now is suffering a little bit, going down to the 13,000s. Very soon it will be in the 14 and 15,000s again, and from that point on it will start climbing towards the 20,000. This is what I'm leaving you with today. This is the end of my roundup of the whole crypto market. I hope you like that, and I hope it's gonna help you making your decisions what crypto coins to get involved with. And if you have any comments, if you have anything to add or any requests, feel free to leave a comment below the video. I'm curious to know what you're thinking, what you liked from this roundup. Did I miss anything? Is there anything that you can add to my roundup? I'm gonna be happy if you do that. Thank you for watching, and thank you for your commenting and likes, and give me the thumbs up or the thumbs down if you didn't like this video. Bye for now. I'm gonna see you in my next update next week.
We know that the currency has risen more than 1,500% this year, actually 2,000% this year. So let me ask you, maybe Bitcoin is real, but is it a bubble?
Yeah, it's a great question. People use the word bubble, and this is basically Bitcoin's 20th bubble. That, you know, we came in five years ago. Remember when Bitcoin was a bubble at $30? Bitcoin was a bubble at $100, at 500, 1,000, 5,000, 10,000. Now we're at a bubble at 17,000. You know, gold's been a bubble for thousands of years. But the bubble framework is really not correct to put against Bitcoin. When you think of a company, right, and their stock price, if they produce X amount of units one year and the same amount of units the next year, and the stock price goes up, and the economic doubles, and the economic productivity hasn't changed, the cash flows haven't changed with the company, we say that company is overvalued. But Bitcoin is not a company. It is a network. And the value of networks is Metcalfe's law. It's N squared. So the amount of users on a network is N. And so if I'm the only person in the world who has a phone, then it's not very valuable. I can't call you. But if you buy a phone, you've actually increased the value of my phone inadvertently or not even knowing, because now all of a sudden my phone's useful. Same thing with the social network. If you look at Facebook, the first person on Facebook, lonely place, not much to do. All of a sudden, 100 people, you can connect with people, you can share stories, share pictures.
That's a good analogy.
So it's classic network effects. 1 billion people on Facebook, that's 1 billion squared, right? So that's, all of a sudden, the value gets exponentially greater. And that's how we value Bitcoin. Money is a network. People believe in the US dollar, it has more value. People believe in Bitcoin, it has value. People believe in gold, it has value. And that's not a linear increase. By definition, the more people that get into Bitcoin, it makes it more valuable. And when we try and take like equities or stock bubble type frameworks to Bitcoin, it's really, it's misguided because it's a network.
Have you sold any Bitcoin so far?
Well, we purchased tickets to space with Bitcoin a couple of years ago on Virgin Galactic, and we clearly overpaid for that. But look, we believe long term that there's still a long way for Bitcoin's value to go from here. We think that it is gold 2.0, and it's disrupting potentially gold, which is a $6 trillion market cap. So if you look at Bitcoin today at 300 billion, it looks like, you know, and it's certainly appreciated quite a bit in the past year. But look, we've been saying this for the past 5 years when Bitcoin was $1 billion market cap, that Bitcoin is a better gold. If you look at the properties of gold that make gold gold, like scarcity, fungibility, divisibility, portability, Bitcoin equals or surpasses gold across each category. So for example, gold is scarce, Bitcoin is actually fixed at 21 million. It's divisible into 100 million pieces. It's actually kind of hard to cut up bars of gold, and they're hard to move.
Yeah, that's
they're
true.
not nearly as portable. And part of this, I think, is a little bit of a generational thing. I hate to say that, but if you talk to millennials or kids on the street,
right,
they don't want hardware. They want software. They get Bitcoin. There's no explanation necessary. They don't talk about wanting to wear Bitcoin or, why isn't Bitcoin shinier? They want a digital, they live in a digital world, 24/7 world. They're connected all the time. And Bitcoin is money built for the internet that moves like information and email and everything else. Gold is just the old world.
Yeah.
It had its place. It's had a great 3,000-year run. And Bitcoin, has only been here for 10 years, but it's really, cutting in quite a bit. Maybe we just see the world differently, and we're, one of the few that saw it that way. But that's kind of the outcome that we envisioned. And I think, it's not really a surprise that we're here.
So maybe Bitcoin is the new gold, at least according to the Winklevoss twins.